Hi, everybody. So I just wanted to take some time to go through some of the various specifics of the major roles, but more so the dean's office and all the support networks that we have here at Pomfret. So first off, we'll start with the dean's office. So the dean's office at Pomfret's really interesting. We actually use a form dean model. So each of you is coming in as a certain form. If you're a ninth grader, you'd be a third former, 10th is fourth, 11th is fifth, and 12th is sixth, and PG as well. Each of you is assigned a form dean that will handle a lot of the basic kind of informational, helpful. They're kind of the person you go to all the time whenever you need something, kind of quickly, I guess. So for us, our third form dean is Mrs. McMahon. However, she is away after having a baby, and so I will actually be filling in until December. So freshmen, you are stuck with the dean of students for a little while until Mrs. McMahon comes back, but she'll be spending some time popping in to say hello when she can, because she certainly doesn't want to become disconnected from your group. Fourth formers, so sophomores, you'll have Mrs. Zimmer. She's the one in the pictures and with the striped shirt. And Mrs. McMahon is the one with the purple shirt next to her. And then next to both of them is Mrs. Kremer, who is our junior or fifth form dean. And then the guy with the tie, Mr. Boyd, he's our local state congressman as well. He is the senior form dean or sixth form. So in terms of scheduling, forms generally meet once every 2 weeks, and we do really great things. So if you're in the sixth form, for example, you might be helping plan prom or figuring out various kind of school spirit days, or we do a big traditional kind of field day, which will probably look different with kind of the new standards for COVID and all, but we're still going to have a lot of these great events that are generally run by forms. Forms sometimes have dinners together and various outings, and ultimately connect as a class. So forms are a great way to kind of be connected. So we're a great source of information. That's number one in terms of a form dean. We can also help with issues and conflicts. So if there's like a roommate conflict or something in the dorm, or sometimes maybe even a conflict between you and a teacher, form deans are kind of your go-to to kind of get in the mix and help out. We're also great to hang out with and talk. We all have candy in our office, and we all like students to come by and visit us. Some people see the dean's office as a really scary place, and we don't want you to feel that way. We actually are very nice, humorous sometimes people that have a lot of fun talking to you. We also help handle discipline and dormitory issues, and we do so much more. So you'll be seeing a lot of us throughout the year, and know that we are your primary helpers in terms of student life and everything revolved around that. So other important resources, since form deans aren't the only people in your life, you also have advisors. You'll all be assigned an advisor. They will be your probably number one supporter and fan. They will be your contact with your parents, and they'll step in whenever you have questions about anything at Pomfret. Also, do some homework. The Griffin Guide, if you go to Sundial Resources in the Student Handbook, you'll be able to review several parts of this handbook because it outlines important things like expectations and rules and standards, some of which we'll cover today. Teachers, coaches, dorm parents, all great people as well. But really, any adult on campus is open and willing to work with you because we are just that type of community. Finally, and as part of your new student orientation, you'll also meet some of our student supports, such as our counseling office, our nurses, and our academic support staff. All of them are here to help make your experience better and support you in any way. So how do we deal with discipline, right? You hear discipline, and sometimes it scares you, and hopefully all of you will come in and will never make any mistakes. That's the hope, right? Well, most minor infractions, tier 3 offenses, and we'll go through the tiers in a second, are handled with a conversation. It could be with your form dean, or it could be your advisor too. Sometimes it's just a conversation between maybe a dorm parent and your form dean. But realistically, these are kind of minor things that usually just require a conversation, a letter. However, if you have enough of these, it could become a problem. At Pomfret, we use something called the Discipline Committee. This is also known as, you'll hear students call it the DC. This is a student and faculty body that reviews major infractions and then decides the best action to take. Now, one thing that you should know about the DC is that it doesn't kind of have the final say. the final say is really between the headmaster and the dean's office when it comes to determining next steps. The DC is an important kind of process in the school because we also apply restorative justice really often. This means, let's say you get in an argument with somebody and maybe say something you shouldn't say. Part of restorative justice might be having some meetings with that person and appropriately apologizing, or maybe writing them a letter. It sometimes could be doing some community service. It could also be putting together something informational for students that help them not maybe make the same mistake you might have made. The part about restorative justice that's most important is growth. That's one of our values at the school. Now, what are the tiers? So tier 3 violations, they're not major. And as I said before, if you have enough of them, it could become a problem. Generally, if you have 3 tier 3 violations, that might put you before the DC. But we take every case on a case-by-case basis. Some things that are in our Griffin Guide include possession of lighter and matches, leaving the hall or hosting someone after hours, and we'll come back to how that one might be bigger this year. Inappropriate use of space. You might ask, what does that mean? That might mean, bringing a fog machine into the bathroom and having like a party in there with friends. That's not an appropriate use for a bathroom. Creating a dodgeball arena in your common lounge. Also inappropriate use of space. Travel violations, so not appropriately signing in and out of campus when traveling. Off floor after check-in. And then finally, we have this kind of larger one that encompasses a lot of different things that could be, pranking your friends or minor arguments or whatever it may be. And we refer to these as actions incompatible with the goals and standards of the school community. And you'll see when we get to tier 2 violations, that's also there as well for more severe kind of infractions that fall under this umbrella term. But it should be noted that many of you, if you haven't signed the Pomfret Pledge already regarding our new standards around COVID-19, you should get it signed, but this may increase the severity of some of our tier 3 violations. For example, Sense in the dorms will really only be allowing students to use their own room, at least for the opening stages, meaning you can't have a friend that doesn't live in your room. Something such as off floor after check-in or hosting someone after hours could actually lead to much larger infractions and could even lead to you becoming a distance learner. So it's really important that you're really checking in on what the standards are with the school. Now, tier 2 violations are considered usually major violations. However, they're not generally dismissible with one offense. These are seen as maybe mistakes that have a lot of room for growth. However, every tier 2 violation carries with it a lifetime probation for that same infraction. What that means is that if you commit the same infraction, you are likely to be dismissed for it. Examples in this include academic dishonesty, lying, inappropriate intervisitation, which this year won't be a thing, at least not right away. So you have to worry about that one. But intervisitation is when you're allowed to host someone of the opposite sex in your room. And it's about the policies there is to leave the door open, make sure that you're not inappropriate with the person. So it's not kind of a hookup session, but rather just hanging out as friends. AWOL, which means away without leave. That means you leave campus without any permission. That's a big problem. Contraband, and this is the minor contraband, things like maybe toy guns or anything that doesn't really require a permit to have, pocket knife, anything like that. School key means you're in possession of a school key other than your room key. Vandalism, pretty self-explanatory. Driving permissions, this is particularly one that day students should pay careful attention to, especially if you have the ability to drive yourself to and from campus. You can't drive other people in your car unless you have the appropriate permissions and follow the rules there. Disobedience, which again is pretty obvious. And then harassment, and this is more inadvertent or maybe non-intentional harassment. Reckless endangerment, e-cigarette, tobacco, and again, that other actions incompatible. So a tier 2 violation would go before the discipline committee. There may be times that it doesn't need to, but generally it does. And so this would be decided by a group of peers and faculty. Usually it's 4 adults and 4 student members. And a DC would entail going before this group with your advisor and a statement written in which you would describe or discuss the infraction and maybe what you've learned from it, or maybe defending your actions. And they would hear your case. and then deliberate on what they feel would be the best course of action. Now, on to the major violations. Now, Tier 1 violations should be avoided at all costs. These likely result, in most cases, in an immediate dismissal of students. They do go before the discipline committee, but in most cases, the recommended action by that group is generally to dismiss the student. These are things like having drugs and alcohol, contraband such as a firearm, weapons that require a permit, open flame in a school building. Now, if you remember, Tier 3 was having a lighter or matches. If you were to light a candle or have a candle that has been lit in your room, or light anything on fire, that would be treated as a Tier 1 offense. Theft is taken very seriously, and it's really important that you ask before you borrow things, since that can sometimes be conceived as a theft. And then intentional harassment. And this is the one that I think particularly is one that many students might do without realizing. Well, I wouldn't say without realizing, but a lot of social media interactions can quickly become intentional harassment. And so it's important to be careful how you communicate with one another in your interpersonal relationships and what you're sharing online. That could quickly become an issue of harassment if you're not careful. So what else do you need to know? So obviously going through major rules is never fun, and it's not the best part of being a dean. But there are some other parts of this process that are important for you to know. Number one is amnesty. Amnesty is a term that is used for one of the processes in which, if you're a concerned peer, or maybe you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing and you have a friend who's concerned about you, they're able to, you or they are able to call and report an incident to the school officer in charge, which is the SOC. And that issue is no longer handled as a disciplinary infraction. For example, let's say you have a friend who you know is currently under the influence and you're worried about them. If you called the SOC phone and said, I have a friend I'm concerned about, this is what is happening, the SOC would ask your name. You would be anonymous in the process, though, so we would not report to the person who called amnesty. We would then get some information from you, and then we would go check in with that student. That student would be brought to our health center, where they would then be addressed by our nurses and our counselors. This would not go before a dean, meaning this would not end up before a DC and not likely to be dismissible. Steps might entail random drug testing for somebody who is maybe under the influence of drugs or alcohol, or counseling sessions. This is an important step also for growth, to allow for each of us to be good community members and step up when we need to before letting things get to a point that might see our friends leave campus. Another way we try to handle situations by giving students a chance to be honest while not having to face maybe disciplinary action is through through events and actions such as in the dorm when we do a black bag search. These tend to start the year in many ways, where a prefect and a dorm parent might give students an opportunity to put any items in their room that are in violation of our standards and practices in a black garbage bag. No one knows what is put in or who puts it in. It's just a way of getting rid of items that you know could potentially get you in trouble. And there's times that during the year we might put this into effect to give students a chance to really clear their conscience and move forward. Other things you should know, it's up to you. I mean, really, if you have other questions, I think it's important that you review the frequently asked questions that are provided in the new student orientation, as well as review the Griffin Guide. But more importantly, if you'd really like to know anything else we haven't covered, please check out us, or please write us an email at dos@pomfret.org, and you're free to ask any questions at all. That goes to the Dean of Students, me, and all the other form deans as well. So this is a great opportunity for you to maybe do some self-research and figure out what you don't know. We'll be doing a live Zoom session as well, where you can meet the Form Deans team and be able to ask whatever questions you like, as well as just kind of meet and greet and have some fun. The date and the link will also be provided in the new student orientation. I really just want to thank everybody for your time, but also welcome you all to the Hilltop. This is a really great opportunity, and although it may look a little different this year than it traditionally looks, I'm sure you'll make a great home here, and you'll quickly figure out everything you need to know. One other resource that I did forget to mention in the slides is prefects. And I think prefects are sometimes the best source of information. So as you're in the dorms, if you have any questions that maybe you're a little nervous to ask an adult about, ask your prefects. They're great. Anyways, I look forward to meeting everybody in person. And if you need anything, just email. Thanks.